Well, it's Tuesday, and as often happens on Tuesdays, we're drifting off in a slightly different direction. If you've been following along on the channel, you know that we just recently got back from our fun time out at Ely, Nevada on the Nevada Northern. We came out here mostly to ride the haunted ghost train, but also just to ride the train in general. And of course, spend some time in the shops because that's always a wonderful thing to do. Now, as I mentioned in a previous video, I'm currently working on the roundhouse for our model railroad, and so I've taken great inspiration from the machine shop here on the Nevada Northern. On a model railroad, of course, you never have enough space, and so you're always looking for some way to compress. And so while I can take inspiration here, there's no way I can duplicate all of this stuff, but I can sort of selectively pick out things that I want to do. And that's what you always have to do on a model railroad. Now, another thing that I take great inspiration from on all railroads that we visit are these little tiny buildings, these little outbuildings. And of course, you want to duplicate that on your model railroad. So it just wouldn't feel like an actual railroad if there weren't a whole lot of little outbuildings. Everywhere you go, there's some sort of building like this one. This one's pretty good sized as these outbuildings go. And again, everything has to be compressed. So even the smallest of these buildings probably have to be made somewhat smaller to fit on the model railroad. Here's the engine shop area on our railroad. You can see the turntable going together here in the foreground. But I'm trying to figure out where I can fit one or two small little outbuildings in this area. And there's a bit of real estate over here, precious real estate, where I have this lumber currently stacked up. And I'm thinking it'd sure be fun to have one or two outbuildings tucked in right here. The track at the back there is the yard lead, and in fact I actually kind of bent that out and around this real estate so that I would have space here for an outbuilding. Now check out these two garages. They're right near the depot on the Nevada Northern, and I've always just thought these are so cool. Clearly they were built as two different buildings, and then at some point in time they tied them together by putting a little bit of roof between the two. And I don't know, I've just always thought this is just the funnest little thing, and I'd really love to model it. The building on the right has these really heavy doors, and I've thought, you know, rather than use it as an automotive garage, I could even downsize it a bit and use it as a handcar setup. There's a company on eBay, they have an eBay store and on Etsy called Little Mountain Timber. And they do 3D printing, and they make the coolest handcar kit. And they sent us one of those, and I've been dying to build it, just have so many other projects going on. But this is on the must-build list for sure. And I thought it'd be really nice to have a structure, a little handcar set out with this kind of standing in front of it. Now, if you follow along the channel, you know that I have a particular love and fascination with lanterns, especially railroad lanterns, but gee, any Dietz lantern, anything, I just think they're so cool. And this handcar comes with a lit lantern. It's all 3D printed again. And it is just the coolest little Dietz lantern. And that's part of my inspiration about loving this kit. And I think it would look great standing in front of the garage here, the Ely garage. Again, I could then compress it and make it smaller, which is always nice. But I think this would make the best looking handcar building. It has these really heavy sliding garage doors with a track top and bottom. And I think that would be really fun to model, especially making it fully operational, which really wouldn't be all that hard to do. And then it has this lamp above the door, and Locomotive Joe on eBay makes this exact lamp, and we've used it all over the railroad, so that's a must-do. Obviously, I will be omitting the Starlink satellite antenna here. There's this kind of strange and mysterious area between the two buildings that are connected by a roof, which sort of leads me to believe that at least one of these buildings used to be somewhere else and then it was moved here and attached to the other building. I digress. Anyway, the other building with the smaller doors, one of the outbuildings that I've just really wanted to add somewhere on the railroad here, it's an absolute imperative for me to have this, is a lantern shop. Now, I don't know if any railroad actually had a lantern shop. I've never seen one. But they had hundreds of lanterns, if not thousands of lanterns on any given railroad in any given railroad yard. And somebody needed to tend to those lanterns. The wicks needed to be trimmed. The fonts needed to be filled with oil. If the wind blew them out, they needed to be relit. It would be constant maintenance on every single lantern, and then multiply that by, like I say, the hundreds of lanterns in any given switching yard. And as I mentioned before, I've just always had this tremendous fascination with all kinds of lanterns. And so here on the model railroad, I've modeled switch stands with actual functional switch lanterns on those. All around the railroad, there are all kinds of functional lanterns and street lamps. The street lamps, of course, were all tended by a lamplighter, somebody that worked for the city and went around and tended all of the street lamps. So I'm sort of thinking there must have been a similar person working at the railroad for the same reason. Here at Garage Mahal, we have a lot of lanterns around, as you would expect. We've got a whole bunch of these switch lanterns, some of which are actually on switch stands, some outside, some inside, but there's, I don't even know, a dozen railroad lanterns around the shop here. Most of the lanterns here on the railroad have been scratch built out of necessity. I just can't find the exact lantern that I want. This is a marker light off of one of our consolidations. This is a different style of marker lamp. But I cast these things up. I quite often will use a different lantern as a pattern and then cast these up and fabricate the lenses and the other missing parts and put together the lantern. I quite often hand these off to Karen and have her put the handles on them because she's really good at that sort of thing. Some of the switch stands are ones that I have cast out of white metal, but the important ones, the ones that actually operate, I use castings that I purchased from Yagas Creek. And they're just a beautiful little casting, and they're strong enough that they're actually functional so that I can use them as a fully functional switch stand and throw the switch manually. Most of the lanterns were originally from Ozark Miniatures, but I modified those a bit and made my own molds, and now I cast those up in white metal. And then there's always some missing parts that have to be scratch built out of K&S brass. In this case, the font and base for the lantern is all made that way. At any rate, somewhere on the railroad I want to have a lantern shop with a workbench and dozens of lanterns hanging up in there and ones that are being worked on and that sort of thing. That'd just be so fun. And this building is a good candidate for what it would look like. I'm just not sure I can fit it in the available space. That remains to be seen. So I'm going to construct these two buildings out of foam core and just try putting this in place and seeing if I can downsize it, compress it, however I can make it fit the available real estate. There's also this fun little building located with those other two, another great inspirational little small outbuilding of some kind. Once again, I don't know that I could fit anything like this in that same area, but it would sure be a fun little building to build and have somewhere on the railroad. And it looks so great with these other two. But again, it's just what can you fit, you know? Anyway, as I say, just a little diversion here on a Tuesday. Plans for what we'd like to do at our own engine shop, if only we can just make it fit. Anyway, we are done here at Ely, and we'll be getting back to videos on the engine shop now, and also traveling off to a train show, so that's going to be fun. So if you're not a subscriber to the channel, please hit the subscribe button and become a subscriber. There's also the opportunity to become a member if you would like to, but at the very least, click on the subscribe button, and the easy way to do that is with the upcoming blue button. Zoink! Right there, the blue button. Well, we're not sure how you found this video on the internet. We hope you didn't find it boring, and we will see you here on Sunday with the Color Country Model Railroad Club. Bye-bye.